Welcome to Plot Twist Radio, the show where creativity, storytelling, and the unpredictable path of the creative life all collide. I'm your host, Erin. Today I'm hanging out with Aviv Martin Rubenstein, who's the singer, guitarist, and lyricist behind the band Jacob the Horse. We talk about the real origin story of the band name. It's incredible. What it's like keeping a band together for 10 years, and how Aviv's world overlaps in a way I did not expect, because he's also a screenwriter and teaches screenwriting as well. We also dig into Jacob the Horse's new album, At Least It's Almost Over, dropping March 20th. Aviv, welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Hi, yeah. My name is Aviv Martin Rubenstein, and I am the singer and guitarist of a band called Jacob the Horse.
Very cool. So, could you tell me a little bit about the origins of the band?
Well, how long do you have? I moved to LA in 2012, which was its own sort of saga, and had a bunch of songs that I had written with previous bands or by myself, and wanted to sort of I'd never not had a band since I was like 17 years old, and so I did what I did in previous iterations of musical projects, and I just like put on Facebook that I was looking for a drummer, and a cinematographer that I had worked with on a movie suggested this guy named Rick Chapman. So I did like a little bit of light Facebook stalking. This is 2012. It was still okay to use Facebook, and discovered that Rick and I actually went to high school together, and I didn't really know him, but I messaged him and I sort of cold emailed him and told him who I was. He was like, "Oh, were you in this band B&D Confusion, which was the name of my high school band?" And it turns out that his younger brother and our bassist's younger brother were like best friends. And so I had met Rick, and Rick had like played shows with my old band that in 2004. Um, and so we had sort of always been kind of destined to get together. And so we were in a band for a little while that had a couple different names, and then the final Jacob the Horse lineup came into stark relief when we included Mark DeRosiers, who I had known from Boston from playing in bands in Boston, and Josh Fleury, who Rick and Rick's younger brother Tom knew from Temple University. And so we all sort of like had this like friend web thing, and we've been in a band together for like 10 years now, which is pretty crazy.
That's pretty good, that to last for a decade. It seems like some of the other bands that I've interviewed, it seems like they don't really make it that long.
Yeah,
There's clashes or whatever,
the
but you guys
Beatles
are
only lasted about 10 years, so take
exactly
that, Paul McCartney.
right. Love it. So where did the name come from?
Naming a band is really difficult, and any person who's ever been in a band will tell you that they have like a document of just like potential band names that it's like hundreds of things long. And so uh, I've been in bands with bad names, and so we worked we workshopped a lot, and then randomly I was talking to one of my dad's like old friends. This weird sort of confluence of events had me out of the country having like a drink with one of my dad's friends from like childhood, and he said that my dad used to have the nick my dad was like such a party animal when he was in his 20s that he had the nickname Jacob the Horse. And so it's like one of those, I don't know if you've ever seen Walk the Line or Walk Hard, a Dewey Cox
Oh yeah.
story, but I had like that sort of stare into the middle distance, and I said, "Say that again, Jacob the Horse." And so we just became Jacob the Horse.
I like it. I
We were
like it.
very
It's unique.
we were very nearly a band called Sharks Breathe Water Like Sharks, which was an example. I was like, we had this meeting about band names, and I just sort of improved. I was like, we can't have a stupid long band name that is gibberish like Sharks Breathe Water Like Sharks. And everyone was like, that's actually not a bad name. And so it is a bad name, and we aren't called that. But yes, that was a runner up.
Yeah, I like Jacob the Horse,
Thank you.
but the other is quite unique. As far as songwriting goes, do you have any, like, influences or
Totally. Um, wow. I don't know why I didn't expect to for you to ask that, but I didn't. So I love clever turns of phrase. I love sort of textured lyrics. I consider myself a lyricist before a songwriter, which I think is probably a distinction without a difference. But there are a handful of musicians and bands that really influenced me. One, I mean, like the Bob Dylans, the Beatles, the Who's, all of the sort of like classic rock radio stuff that like I'm 40, my dad is a baby boomer sort of in the car um as I was growing up, but more sort of contemporarily or when I was like in a in my teens and kind of finding my own music. There's this band called Me Without You from Philadelphia that broke up a few years ago, but their lyricist Aaron Weiss is like I think rivals Shakespeare essentially, and there's a singer songwriter from Austin called Bob Schneider who I really found inspiring. A band called from Boston called Bishop Allen. I think my favorite songwriting of all time is a band called Shore Juror, like someone on a jury who is certain. They're from Philadelphia. They were like a super small band that my high school and college band played with, and I'm friends with their singer now. But they broke up long time ago, and they are Johnny writes songs differently than I could ever try to, which I always find really fascinating. Is like I think everyone sort of has an understood like process of the things that they do. Like, you ever seen someone else like peel an orange or make cereal or cook eggs or something, and they do it in a different way than you
Oh,
do,
yeah.
and you're like, that's so weird. Why would you do it like that? And so that's sort of how I see Jonathan Heathcote, the singer and songwriter of Scherger. Like his songs are so weirdly constructed, weirdly uh written and presented, but they are all also so perfect that I like am fascinated. They like speak to me emotionally, but also like, how did you do this? And so that's really inspiring in a way that like influences me, but I cannot emulate.
So, you're also a screenwriter, correct?
I am also a screenwriter, yes.
Writing a song versus writing a script, what is that like? There's probably not a lot of connections, but
Yes. Okay. So I would promise my wife has a migraine. I promised her I wouldn't yell. So there is such a there is an overlap between screenwriting and songwriting, and that I too didn't realize until I was in grad school. I think I went to grad school for screenwriting, and I promise I will answer the question in a second. But um, I was like, I was probably like a shithead. I probably you know, and I was in my college band at the time still, and was like kind of as a joke saying that like screenwriting was my backup, that I want to be a rock star, and like writing movies will be my backup, and clearly I didn't mean that because both are extremely hard professions to like make money in. um
Yes.
and so a friend of mine like laid down the tough love and was like, you got to stop saying that, man. And I didn't quite realize at that time, this was about 15 years ago or so more, geez, yeah, like 17 years ago, that there is sort of a structural overlap. So i I think songs and movies, to outsiders, to people who are sort of just like casual observers or fans or whatever, um don't realize the invisible structure of both things. So songwriting structure a little bit more transparent, verse, chorus, bridge. And there is a sense of, by the time that you've like halfway through hearing a song for the first time, you should be able to anticipate emotionally the like section changes, right? Well, like, even like on the rhythm, right? 1 2 3 4, and we're going to the chorus. And I think the best songs are ones that you can start to sing along with before you've finished hearing them for the first time. And that's always my goal with songwriting. And so I didn't, until my friend Rob laid down this like kind of tough love to me, realize that that is sort of the same with screenwriting and with writing movies and television, where there is this invisible structure, and it is all about like a relationship with you, between you and your audience. There is a musicality to things, and a rhythm to things that you have to employ in order to hook your audience emotionally, and excite them or thrill them or scare them or make them laugh. And the second layer to that is you have to make the structure invisible enough that people are not immediately bored with it. People don't think that they're ahead of you when you are telling them a story or singing them a song, and you can still sort of subvert expectations in certain ways that are like gratifying to the audience, or maybe alienating, right? Like there's a lot of music and a lot of media that is purposely sort of antagonistic to its audience, that the point is not to like or enjoy or hum along with the thing. It's to be like kind of upset or off-putting or whatever. And so I was really resistant to screenwriting structure, story structure, because I was like, well, that boxes me and that pigeonholes me. I'm an artist. I got to tell the stories that are in my heart. And like, clearly no, that's like not the way things work. And every story has a structure, whether you want it to be there or not, right? That your audience is expecting a version of the same story we've been telling ourselves since we were in caves. And it's your job as the storyteller, the author, the writer, the whatever, to either provide them with that structure or version of it, or withhold that. But withholding that will get a reaction from your audience, and it might not always be positive. And it's your job as the storyteller to like manage that reaction. There
Mhm.
are, to use like a songwriting example, there are a lot of songs on this new record that we have that don't resolve. So we can talk a little bit about music theory. There's like a bass, there's like a home bass in all songs. There's like a most songs. There's like a home key, home note that's the key that the song is in. And usually the song begins and ends on the one beat, boop, 1 2 3 4, and in that home key. Most of the songs, about half of the songs on the record, are in the key, my key of A minor, because that's like where my voice sort of situated. And so, um, traditionally, the song would start and end on that home note of home chord of A minor. And there are, I would say, like half the songs on the record just like don't resolve, right? Don't go back to that. Don't end on the one, and don't resolve into the dominant one chord, um to give that sense of like unfinishedness. I don't know that
Mhm.
that's a word, but like to give a sense that it's not as neat and tidy as your I want to hold your hand, which
Oh,
does
sure.
end there. I don't know why I'm taking shots at the Beatles today.
Why not?
Why not?
Well, that is really interesting because I always wondered that, because I write several different kinds of writing. If I'm at work, I do the academic writing. Then
Sure, yeah.
when I'm at home, I do the fiction writing. It's hard to turn off one versus the other. Do you sometimes find that too?
Yes. So, I'm not the most neurotypical person that I've ever met. And so switching gears is really difficult for me. And I have to sort of, h- half of my writing time is spent like getting into the bath, not the literal bath, but the like metaphorical one. And unfortunately for our like really product productive capitalistic minded selves, like we would consider that not writing, but it is, right? Getting ready to write, taking a walk. I walk for like 6 miles a day with my dog, and like thinking about writing is writing. Same with like song, and this is another thing like songwriting has sort of given me the freedom to do is like it's not just songwriting when you're sitting with your guitar, your instrument, and a notebook and like jotting things down. If I'm in the shower and I think of a cool lyric, or if I'm walking the dog or driving to work and thinking of a cool lyric, like that's still writing. And the same with screenwriting, same with any sort of anything really. Um Academic writing I think might be a little different. I don't have like a ton of experience in it. Um but I think it is much more like regimented. And so
Yes.
that's my caveat is like maybe not academic writing.
Right. Yeah. It's not fun. I write it and it's not
I'm
interesting.
so sorry.
Yeah.
But
So,
every writer I've ever met like hates writing. There's
yeah,
no one that hates writing more than writers.
you need it, you live off of it, but it also
Yeah.
frustrates you.
And you
Sad.
can't let it you can't let it be your whole persona, your whole life.
Right.
You can't let whether people like your writing or not define who you are, which is like a thing that I probably needed to hear 25 years ago. But I think every writer at least starts by figuring like using words and language to decode and declutter the way that they see the world and themselves in it. And so when someone rejects that, I don't like your movie, I don't like your song, I don't like your book, poem, whatever, then that's like a personal rejection. And then when you turn your writing into a career, you have to like you get rejected 99 times out of 100. And even like getting feedback, getting notes, a lot of I teach screenwriting, so a lot of my students are like very protective of their work because it's like a version of who they are, and I
Sure.
understand that. I felt that way too, but the only way to sort of move forward is to allow some sort of separation between like who you are as a person and like the product that you're putting into the world. Unfortunately, it's not just your therapy, it's also a product.
Right. Yes. So, tell us about the new album.
So our new record is called At Least It's Almost Over. And I had to think about that for a second. And it comes out in March of 2026. We're recording this on New Year's Eve. I don't know how long it's going to take to drop, but I'll guess and say this year, March of this year.
Mhm.
And it is a group of songs that spans legitimately about 16 years of points of view. So the newest song on the record was finished like 2 days before we recorded it in 2025, and the oldest song on the record was written in March of 2009. So because songwriting is a version of therapy and basically me opening up my diary and asking you to like me, um, I do a lot of sort of retrospection and take a look at songs that I've already recorded or haven't released or never even finished and sort of reappraise them, which Rick, our drummer, being a fan of my like high school band is very helpful because he's always really positive and sort of encouraging of like just because you wrote the song when you were a teenager or in your early 20s or whatever doesn't make it any less legitimate. You gotta sometimes like look at stuff from the vaults and breathe new life into it. And so yeah, there are a couple songs on the record from 2009, a couple of them from and most of them from 2023 and beyond. We're not the type of band that gets to go to the studio with unlimited time and write songs in the studio, which is like just like a super sick way to do it. We all have jobs. Two of us have kids, three kids between the two dads. And so we write and rewrite and perform all these songs for sometimes years before we get to take them to the studio, basically so that we can record them as economically as possible in terms of time. And and even then we're like always learning things in the studio and learning that like some stuff that we're playing is maybe clashing with each other. There's like a running joke that no one in the band knows the lyrics to the songs until they hear me record them for our record. So sometimes, once again, that's like years go by and they're like, wait, that's what you're saying. And so it's always sort of a learning and revision process, but we try to be as sort of tight as possible before we get there, before we get to the studio, so that we're not, wasting our time, our engineer Jack's time, producer Jack. And sometimes it works really well. And on the record, there's one song, our the last song on the record is called Closer. And it's the first take. It is the first take of the song. We all record together in a big room. It's like not the way that a lot of things are recorded these days, where it's like one instrument at a time to a click track. We don't use a click track. You maybe can tell. Um, we all record in a big room with no headphones, and the song is the song. Um, and sometimes it doesn't work, and there are songs that we've recorded and re-recorded songs that we were like certain were going to be on the record that got cut. So that'll be for the next one, I guess.
Absolutely. That's really cool. So, as far as writing goes, I'm actually very curious about this and I've never asked anyone. W- Do you all kind of just throw your own parts into it? Like the drummer does his beats or, do you
Sure.
kind of just say, let's do this?
There are a couple of different ways that it can come together, and none of them, like, I suppose I can sort of tell like who who like the germ of the idea came from, by listening to the song. But in the old days, when I it was a very kind of solo, solitary effort, I would write the song, the lyrics, the chords, and come in and like play maybe like do a demo on GarageBand or something with like a drum track, like a temporary drum track, and come in and like present it to the band, and they would like adjust, tweak, etc. And that's the way it was for me for like 15, 20 years. And now, since the end of the last records or so, since like 2017, so a while, the process has been slightly different, where sometimes that's still the case, but other times someone will come in with a germ of an idea, a riff, a line. Usually it relates to their own instrument. So it's rare that like Mark, our bassist, will like come in with a drum idea, just because like our instruments are our extensions of ourselves, and my
Right.
instrument isn't the guitar, it's the words. But Josh will come in with a riff, or Rick will come in with a drum beat, and we want to do something in this style, and then we'll sort of, I hate this term, but we'll sort of just like jam on it for a while, and we'll mess around, we'll play, and it sounds just terrible. It sounds absolutely horrible, but we'll find like a cool thing about it, and then come we'll sort of keep working that and working that and working that. Um, and sometimes things turn like get really manipulated into unrecognizable versions of how they started, and we can even go back to the that original germ of the idea and be like, okay, let's mutate it in this other direction. So there's a real mix. Some songs I brought in entirely and we sort of revised them. One song, Josh, our guitarist, brought in, and it's a song called This Place Sucks Ass. And he wrote the whole thing, and did a whole demo, drums and all, and we sort of just like revised it a little bit and tweaked some of the lyrics. And then most of the rest of them are, we're in a room. What if we just sort of like, here's a cool riff idea, and where do we go from here? What if we did this? What if we did that? Most of the songs on the record are second, third, fourth iterations of a complete song. So the first single on the record is called 666 Chicks. It's out wherever you listen to music. And that is like, we had finished a song, and I was like, this doesn't feel right lyrically. And so I rewrote the whole song. And so that happens like I would say 3, 4, or 5 times on the record of we think we're done, and then like something about it isn't quite right, and so we'll completely redo it. Either lyrically or musically or some combination of both.
Sure. Yeah, that seems really common for writing, any kind of writing. I know
Totally.
when I start writing, whatever I start with, usually by the time I get to the end of the project, I'm like, that's not what I started
Yeah, it's
with.
gone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. So what is next for you? I know you have the album. So what else?
Yes. So we have our record. It's out March 20th, wherever you get your music. We have it on vinyl, all this other stuff, jacobthehorse.com, et cetera, et cetera. Next, there's a bit of a pendulum with me always. So I'm focusing a lot on, or I have been focusing, the record's been done for a little while. Sorry, everyone. Um, if you send me an email and ask real nicely, maybe I'll leak it to you. So I've been focusing a lot on screenwriting, writing some freelance projects, mostly in the horror space. I know that you are a ghost hunter, and
I am.
so
Yep.
we could talk we could talk more about that. I have a tip for a haunted old school for you.
All right.
But I've been doing a lot of horror projects recently, and then I think probably in I'm gonna guess April, we're gonna start writing new songs. We have some new ideas. There's like one song that I had mentioned got cut from the record because it was like not quite ready. So I'm very excited to revisit that. But yeah, a lot of what's been happening now has been like record release focused. And it's like, like the life cycle, right? As soon as it's out in the world, it's brand new to everyone else. But for us, it's like, God, I'm so over this. And so we get to sort of like reform into the caterpillar a bunch of new ideas based on who we are now,
Mhm.
which is cool. Um, and I'm excited to yell more things into microphones about how much I hate what's happening in the world right now.
There is a lot of material out there for you.
I don't know what you mean. Everything's great. Everything's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
wonderful, right? I just think of that meme, with the dog
The
with the
dog, yeah.
fire.
So
Yeah.
so that's kind of where the album title came from, which is I was working on a movie in Malaysia. Long story. It was a disaster. And the movie I thought was going to change my life really got away from me toward the end there. And on our second to last day of shooting or so, we were doing this like visual effects day. The visual effects supervisor was like leading the charge. I was basically losing my mind and having a panic attack and went out to like the craft services table where all the snacks are. And one of the producers was sitting there and I was like have basically about to have a breakdown. And I said, Harris, I just worry that we're making a bad movie. And he like quietly sort of put a hand on mine and said, at least it's almost over. And so it's like it felt very much like this dog in a burning room where I'm like, this is fine that he's referring to as like, I'll be dead soon. And then the pain will end. And so that's sort of the attitude, mostly unserious attitude I've taken to what's been going on in the world right now. It's like at least it's almost over.
I think that's the only way we can do it. That you gotta write it out, right?
Laugh through the tears.
Yep, exactly. So, where can the listeners find you? I know you mentioned before.
Think of the horse on all of the things. We still have a Facebook, I think. Don't use it. I mean, you shouldn't even use it on Instagram or TikTok. We have a website, jacobthehorse.com. We're on all of the streaming services that you also like shouldn't use. It's terrible because all of the like places that you can find us are the ones that are owned by the corporate overlords that we
Sure.
hate, but we also
Yeah.
like still have to be on there so people can find us. I'm conflicted about it. So anywhere that I'm conflicted about, you can find us there. We're at Jacob the Horse. And if you want to follow me for whatever reason, I am at Rambo Calrissian on all the places.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure that I have that in the show notes so everyone can
Thank you so
find
much.
you. And thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Aviv, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was such a fun conversation, and I loved hearing how your songwriting brain overlaps with screenwriting structure. Before we wrap up, I've got something special for you. Aviv was kind enough to send over an early soundbite from an upcoming song by Jacob the Horse, dropping later this month, and you're hearing it here first. So stick around, give it a listen, and make sure you're following Jacob the Horse wherever you stream your music so you don't miss the full release. Here's an exclusive preview from Jacob the Horse, and I'll see you next time on Plot Twist Radio.